Okay. Hi. Lydia decided it was a great time to eat, so
Sorry.
Welcome back to Bibliophiles Audio Files.
This is your host, Hungry Hippo. Anyways, today we're doing Touched by a Hero by Susan Rescorla. Is how I read it.
It is Rescorla.
Oh, I got it right!
Yeah.
So this is our 9/11 tribute. This book is written by a widow of
Rick Rescorla.
I was going to say Mike. I'm like, I know it's not Mike. Rick.
It's Rick.
Yeah, the American hero that saved almost 3,000 people on 9/11. Alyssa is one that recommended this book because you read it during school, didn't you?
No. So the reason why I have this book, I took a crisis communications course.
Mm-hmm.
And my professor, she's the one I talked about during Tuesdays with Maury,
yeah.
Professor Z. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't talked to her still, and I feel so bad. But she's the one who, what she did was at the end of every single one of our classes, she would start reading this little excerpt of the story. And I thought it was just a story that she made up or something like that.
Yeah.
But then after reading this, I realized it's basically the first chapter of this book.
Really?
So she was like breaking it up into little parts and stuff. And at first I was kind of just like turned off by it because it was kind of just like she's reading something. But then later as she was reading it, I started getting like interested and invested in it. And then I found out it was a true story about Rick Rescorla. And it was about, and there was a book. And this, I don't know how this professor does this. And she's like amazing. But she is really good at finding connections.
Yeah.
Hence why she's a professor in like the communications department of the school.
That would make
sense. Makes sense. But she was able to reach out to Susan Rescorla. And we actually got to have her in our class.
No.
Yeah. So I got to meet her, and she was telling her own story about the whole situation and the books and stuff like that. And at the end, we were able to go up and talk to her, and I felt like I had to go talk to her.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
Like, because I was just like, I feel like I need to say something to you.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to say to you. So I got to go up to her. I'm pretty sure I said something like, I just want to say I'm so sorry for, what happened, because this is such an awful thing to happen. And I don't remember what else I said. It was something like that, but I was, I wanted to hug her too. But that didn't seem appropriate since I just met her. But so I got to meet her, and this was this whole story and the situation was a very big part of our course. Because it's crisis communication, and this is obviously like a crisis.
Perfect.
Right. So, so she was really fascinated by this, and there was quite a bit that she incorporated into, and there's a lot of stuff she did with the 9/11, and in particular, like Rick Rescorla's story too.
Yeah. Wow.
So, that's why I recommended it. Once I found out it was a book, I ended up buying it off of Amazon. It's taken me a while to actually read it, and I have been out of college for 3 years now. Mm-hmm. And so, I bought it in my senior year. So, I've had this book for 3 years, and I've tried reading it. Yeah. And it's a very emotional book.
It is very, I cried so many times. It's not even funny how much I cried.
So, I couldn't sit down and read it, but I figured since, our upload days are now, Mondays and Wednesdays, not Mondays and Wednesdays, Mondays and Thursdays, and Monday, which is, in this case scenario, today, is 9/11, I figured this was probably a better book to do on this kind of day instead of...
I don't know if it's on 9/11, but it's right beside it. Maybe 9/12.
No, Monday is 9/11.
Is it? Mm-hmm. It is. Wow.
That's why I suggested it would probably be a better night. Yeah, because instead of talking about
Sarah J. Maas
or something, I'm just like,
No, I really like this one. I've never read a book about 9/11, but I'm pretty sure it's in New York City, a museum dedicated, and it's got the last words of people who were on that flight or in that building. Mm-hmm. And every time I see anything from that day, I get chills and start crying. Mm-hmm. I was only one at the time. I don't remember anything about 9/11, but...
I don't either, and I was four.
The love and the grief surrounding that date is just so powerful to me. I don't know as much as I should about it. I'll be the first to admit that. But this book really helped me see a lot and open my eyes a lot more to what went on that day. Oh,
where do we go from here?
It's not Kindle Unlimited.
It's not.
It's $7.99 on Amazon Kindle. I was going to do trigger warnings. We got to do the description first. Sorry, we're already caught up in this.
Yeah.
Description is on Amazon since it's not on Storygraph.
Well, I copied and pasted.
Well, she put it on Storygraph.
Yeah, that's why this book's special.
Touched by a Hero is the inspirational journey of Susan Rescorla, whose husband, retired Army Colonel Rick Rescorla, sacrificed his life to safely evacuate nearly 2,700 people from the World Trade Center during the 9/11 terrorist attack. Rick's heroism as Morgan Stanley's second vice president for corporate security continues to inspire others even 10 years later. Touched by a Hero explores the transformation of Susan's personal tragedy into a story of patriotism and is a testament to the healing power of an international community dedicated to preserving the legacy of a genuine American hero. There are no trigger warnings that I could find, so we came up with our own 9/11 death and murder. Probably terrorism should be
Terrorism,
added.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we'll add that one too. But do you have the reviews?
I do. Because I'm the one that added it as like a user-added story onto Storygraph, there are no reviews except for Amazon. Mine.
Oh, yours?
Yeah, because I put mine in there.
Yeah, I will after. I just don't, because I don't want you knowing my reviews.
Yeah.
Because, again, we don't tell each other anything that we write until we're here in the moment.
Yeah. So, I just do it anyway, because I'm behind anyways.
Yeah.
Very behind.
Unless I stalk your Storygraph page, I'm not going to know it.
But I pulled these reviews off of Amazon. There's only 22 reviews on Amazon. The overall rating's a 4.5 out of 5. There's no 2-star ratings. About 70% of the reviews are 5 stars. 19 are 4, 8 are 3, and 3% are 1 stars. But only about 8 of them actually have like some sort of like substance in their reviews. I'll start off with the 1-star review.
Okay.
It's very long, and there's not... It's very long, so I'm not going to, like, read the whole thing, and I didn't really read the whole thing anyway, but just from skimming it, it looks like someone who... So this first sentence it has here, not first, there's, like, bullet points ahead above it, but one of the sentences that, like, I read first was, I've been informed that only U.S. citizens can be a commissioned or warrant officer in the U.S. military. Mm-hmm. Non-citizens are ineligible to attend WO flight training and OCS, and it just keeps going on. And I feel like he's kind of like, I'm assuming it's a he.
Yeah.
That's kind of sexist.
I'm assuming it. No,
I'm assuming
it's a man.
The guy's name is there. But he seems like the kind of guy that's kind of just like, well, how can he be like an American hero if he like, wasn't American, you know? Like,
yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting just from that one sentence. Yeah. So, that's what that review is. But the other reviews I have, this 4-star says, Rick Rescorla is a true hero, and this book tells his story. His widow obviously loved him very much. They found each other late in life and had too short a period together, but it is very meaningful. And to the extent we have people like Rick Rescorla in our lives, this, apparently, I didn't hit see more when I screenshotted this. Okay, we're just gonna leave it ambiguous like that. This 5-star says, all Americans should read this. He was a real hero. And then this other 5-star says, Touched by a Hero is a very moving tribute to a great soldier and hero of 9/11. The impact of this man, both during his military service in Vietnam and later on 9/11, is shown throughout this book. A great read. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much that. In regards to that. Do we do spoiler warnings?
No.
I kind of feel like we shouldn't.
Yeah.
It feels weird for a book like this.
This should be respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No offense, James. Not that you're not respectful. Jerry, go away.
We love you, but, Jerry, go away.
No, this one is really important.
It just feels wrong to do that.
Yeah, it really does.
Sorry, James.
Yeah.
But, my first 2 notes were pretty much me saying I met Susan Rescorla and how I found the book.
Yeah.
One of the really cool things, which is kind of really sweet, actually. You know how in the book they really relate eagles to Rick and stuff like that, and there's a whole sanctuary for that? Mm-hmm. My professor, I think this may or may not have been like her first course at the school, but it was definitely, I think, her first time doing a crisis communications course at the school. And
what exactly is a crisis communication?
So, pretty much crisis communication, we pretty much learned how to deal with crisis, in a situation. So, for example, 9/11. So, This is what I was going to get at. So, one of the assignments that we had to do, which I kind of was annoyed by it, but, like, thinking about it later, and especially, like, now, it was really helpful. It was a really good lesson, and it really makes a lot of sense. And it's something that I feel like crisis communication is something everybody should take. It's just such a good course, and I recommended it to one of my classmates, and I let him borrow my book, and I never got that book back. So still a little salty about that, but you know what, it's fine. Anyways, so one of the assignments she had us do is she told us to pick any spot on campus, or out if you don't live on campus, go out just like somewhere public where there's a lot of people. And you're going to sit there for a couple weeks, like at least 30 minutes to like an hour, just sit there. Yeah. And pretty much just people watch and see what's going on. And the first part of that assignment was to make a map of the area. Yeah. So I chose the lobby of the communications building because there's a bunch of tables and chairs, and people like to hang out in that downstairs part of it. Because
so you could kind of be there and be like inconspicuous at the same time.
Kind of. Yeah. But I was just sitting, I think I moved around like in the area too. Like I sat in different spots too, depending on what was open. But we pretty much had to make a map. We had to create a key so you can see like what each part of it was. And I was in the downstairs part, so I had to put in like the stairs and like this symbol meant like this and all that stuff. And all that stuff. I think it's called a legend, where it tells you what the symbols mean.
I'm not sure.
I think, but maybe I'm wrong. But regardless, we had to make a map and pretty much just like show like this is what the area that we're sitting in looks like. And then the next week we had to write down like what are some things you see, what are some things that you hear, and then we pretty much had to write a whole little narrative each and every single week saying like this is what's going on and this is what I hear, this is what I see, this is what's like happening in this area. Yeah. And the whole point of the lesson was to make you aware of what's going on in your surroundings. That's the whole premise, because that's what crisis communication is. It's to make sure you're aware of like what is going on in your situation, so that if something happens, like you know how to deal with it and you know what's going on and stuff like that. So that was like our very first assignment, and I think what did I write down in regards to this? Because I know I wrote that down. But that's one of the reasons why this is what I was going to continue with when I was talking about it at first. So, one of the things that was really interesting about Rick and his life is that he knew something was going to happen. Yeah. Like, he had this inkling. So
I don't remember where I made that note at, but I did. Here. God warned Rick, or something, for him to already have plans in place for this attack years in advance is amazing.
And then he forced people to go with these plans and learn this stuff. Yeah. So that is like a physical plan that he actually had. Yeah. Like I think it's called a contingency plan. Mm-hmm. I think.
Well, there was the garage bombing in the basement, and so
which was in 1993.
Yeah, and so like he's like, okay, well that's obviously not going to be the last thing that happens. Yeah. So let's be prepared for the next thing that's going to happen, because I promise it's going to be aerial. Yeah. And he was right. Like it's amazing to me how right he was.
Yeah. Yeah. So like he had a physical plan and all that stuff. I forgot there was a thing I was talking about with him and the Eagles, because we got sidetracked. Yeah.
So sidetracked?
Yeah.
Surely not.
So I guess because it might have been her first like crisis communications class that she was teaching. She called us her Eagles.
Aww.
So we were like her Eagles because we were like her starting off point in her course of teaching this class. Yeah. And then her second class that she taught this, she called them something else I can't remember. I remember she was planning on writing a book herself about something, and she was going to...
Yeah, because you were telling me about that, and you said that we would review it.
If she had it. I don't think she's made it yet.
No, like when she does.
Yeah, if she does, when she does, we will, for sure. Yeah. But, yeah, she calls us her Eagles, because we're, like, those first to take this course. Mm-hmm. And she said if she ever wrote a book, she would actually dedicate it to us and her other classes and whatever she calls them. She would say, like, dedicated to my Eagles and my... all that stuff.
That'd be really sweet.
Seeing that and like made me really like happy.
Yeah, the reference there. Yeah. My first note was I love the steel beam memorial that they were taking. Our city actually has one for tornadoes because April 26th or 27th, 2011, horrible tornadoes came through and killed a couple hundred people, and they still have a steel beam at a park. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying not to give away our location because that'd be weird. But they have it there, and it's got a plaque on it. It says in memory of those we lost on the tornadoes from 2011. But I think that about makes me cry every time I see it when I go to that park, because that's a piece of history. Yeah, like that's just it's amazing, and I would love to go where they have the steel beam in honor of Rick Rescorla, because that would be amazing to be able to look at.
I looked it up because I was curious.
It's in North Carolina,
isn't it? I think it's in Georgia.
Georgia.
It's about like 3 to 4 hours away from where we are.
We need to go. We need to take my children.
Yeah.
They need to see that. Yeah, my kids are going to read this when they get older.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's so weird to think that my kids' generation is not going to have any idea about this because they were born years later.
Well, they might learn it in school.
I'm going to be teaching my kids because this is a huge part of American history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I just could not imagine not teaching my kids about 9/11. And, you know, like, I wasn't a part of it at all. I think my mom said me and my brother were at daycare that day, and she went and got us and took us home because she just couldn't be away from us.
I remember my mom telling me she was kind of freaking out because my dad was traveling on the road, because at this time we lived in Jersey, and I think he might have been driving through Pennsylvania, maybe. Yeah. And she saw that, I think the Pentagon was attacked that same day too.
It was.
And so, like, then the towers and stuff like that. And she was freaking out because she thought my dad was going to
be there.
Be somewhere.
Yeah.
Which he wouldn't have been, I don't think. But she was afraid he was going to be in, like, close to, I think, the Pentagon. Maybe.
Even New Jersey is close enough to where I want to be.
So depending on where you are in Jersey, you'd be able to see all that go down.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It's too close. I'm glad that, like, we live in Alabama, and so, like, there is nothing political around us. Closest thing would be Browns Ferry, which is a nuclear plant, but that's in Athens, I believe. So 2 hours away. So if push come to shove, I don't think we would be near anything.
Maybe the Space Center in Huntsville.
That's more of a museum.
Yeah, but maybe. You know.
Yeah. I don't think that's got any, like, significance.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine being this lady, knowing their husband was there in that building. Like, there's thousands of people who went through that.
And she knew he was going to die, too.
Because, like, it just made me really sad that, like, yeah, that's her husband, but, like, they'd only been together 2 or 3 years, less than 5 years.
I don't remember how long, but
it wasn't long at all. Yeah. But just the emotions that she must have been feeling. I'm getting chills talking about this. The emotions of knowing my husband's there. And at one point he called her, and
I wrote down his last words to her.
I did too.
You made my
life. Yeah. That made me cry. It really did.
So sad. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
And she just knew, because she knew what kind of person he was.
Yeah.
And that he was going to do whatever he can to save everybody.
Yeah.
And I know we already mentioned this in the beginning, but he worked for the company called Morgan Stanley, which had, I think, so in the entire company, 2,700 employees survived. The whole company in itself took over 21 different floors, I believe. It's like a big company.
It was a big company.
Or like there was 21 floors in between, whatever.
Yeah.
And only 13 people from that company died.
Yeah.
Including Rick.
And the 2 security guards he's with.
Yeah.
So really it was 10 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's insane.
Yeah.
To think, like, all that happened. And he made it down to the bottom, actually, of the towers.
He made it down, and then
he went back up.
Yeah. Which is, it mentions time and time again in the book, he didn't have to do that. But that was the kind of guy that he was. Yeah.
And one of the things, I believe it was mentioned in this book, too, is that, like, people who are in the military, I think he said he didn't like it when they call people who are in the military and survived heroes, because he said something along the lines of,
the real heroes
die.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, coming from a military family, I've heard that several times. That, and also where Dan Hill, which is a friend of his, saying he envies Rick going out in a blaze of glory and not as a silly ass old man.
Yeah.
I've also heard that several times, just being military family.
I love the story of how Susan and Rick met.
Yeah.
That's the story that she was telling us in class. How he was, like, running around barefoot. And she's just like, why?
Yeah. Wasn't he, like, studying to write a book or write a play?
I think so, yeah.
Something about people not having shoes.
Something like that, yeah.
My next note is about a poem, but I didn't write it down. I just wrote the name of it.
Oh, you have the name of it?
Yes.
What's it called?
Hero. It's the poem by David Prowse.
David Krause?
Prowse. Prowse. Can't find it on Google. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it's Hero. Cornishman David Prowse wrote a beautiful poem published in the Cornwall Western Morning News about the man some called Tammy in his early years, a nickname Rick picked up for being a fan of the Bronx, of a New York boxer. I can't say that name, so I'm not going to even try. A little clutch of veterans share a table in a bar. There's a guy off in the corner coaxing tunes from his guitar. They watch the Hudson River as it rolls toward the bend, and they talk of Rescorla as a comrade and a friend. While out across the water, many ocean miles away, within a Cornish tavern by a sandy Cornish bay, another group are gathered, reminiscing as a clan, and their thoughts are all of Tammy from the schoolboy to the man, and every head among them has a picture in its mind, which time and place and memory have captured and consigned. Now the pictures well together until only one remains, of a sturdy, selfless hero guiding others from the flames. It goes on more, but in my mind I was seeing the statue that they have. I don't know if it's near the beam, or maybe it's at his favorite base. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where that was. There was a part of it specifically. Oh, here it is. And on that evil morning, so deceptively serene, amid another carnage just as callous and obscene, again he took the mantle of the sainted and the strong to save the lives of others with a blessing and a song, because it was talking about how when people were afraid he was singing. And that was something he also did in the military, because it was like a Cornish thing to do, because he was from Cornwall originally, which is, I guess that's what that reviewer meant when he said that he's not an American hero, because he's not from America. But that poem really made me cry, because it was talking about how it was before. When you think about 9/11, you don't think about what happens before. Yeah. You know, people getting up, getting ready, going to work, and how calm it was. There's a lot of things that I never thought about. Oh, what I want to talk about. We were talking about before recording how you said murder should be one of the trigger warnings. I never thought of 9/11 as a murder. But I thought of it as something traumatic, of terrorism, just the way that Susan refers to it as Rick's murder and talks about the murderers. That alone about made me cry, and seriously brought chills every time I read when she said she was talking about him being murdered. Because I'm just like, I've never heard it referred to it that way.
I don't think I have either prior to reading this or hearing the story actually. But it makes sense.
It does.
I don't know if it's
because I was reading it first. I was kind of like, well, I don't know why that would be the word that was used. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, that's exactly what it was. It was murder. Yeah.
But yeah, I did cry a lot when I first tried reading this book a couple of years ago. I would think I made it 10 pages in, and I started crying, and I was just like, oh.
I don't even know if I lasted that long. It was when I remember the first time. It was when she was riding with them to take that beam to where it was. Yeah. And they were talking about how strong she was. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just like, I started crying because I'm like, I can't imagine. My husband is he's my rock. Yeah. You know, we've only been together 4 or 5 years, but he's a third of my entire world. So especially when she knew he was gone before she actually knew he was gone. So dealing with the grief, and then the reporters, the people from the company wanting to talk to her, and then just all this other stuff going on. And especially the journalists that you knew were probably knocking on her door, knowing that this is the wife of the guy that saved all these people, let's go talk to her. But I just couldn't imagine what she was feeling or going through, even now, all this time later.
Another time I cried during the book was when her dog Buddy died. Yeah. I got really sad, and I think that's just because that was her companion, that person. Yeah. I was going to say person.
I think she mentions that the dog kept her going. Yeah. Yeah.
So the fact the dog passed away made me really sad, and it made me think about my childhood pets, because they're all gone now. And it's really sad. And, animals are a big part of your life. So. Yeah.
Especially when something traumatic happens, because pets are simple. Yeah. And, they're not, they just love. That's all they know how to do. I love the personal stories, all the emails and the songs and the poems that were written to her to put in this book, and how she put her personal note before or after all of them. I really like that.
That's another thing I wrote, is how each chapter is a different person's perspective of the whole situation and of who Rick was and at different times in his life and stuff like that.
It was really reminding me of Tuesdays of Morrie, because it gives you the sense like you know him, because you have read all of these people's different account on him, and at that point you just feel like he's a friend.
Another time I cried. That's how this book's going.
It really is.
Those my notes is just me crying.
It is. I mean, this is, if you can read this and not cry at least once, you don't have a heart. Yeah. Like, this book is so emotional.
But there's a section where she was talking about how, I don't know if it was like her granddaughter or Rick's granddaughter, but the granddaughter, who's an ice skater, and they did a memorial kind of service show kind of thing, and during that memorial, she was put on the shoulders of a firefighter, and that just made me really sad and emotional, because I'm just like, that's so
heartfelt.
Yeah. I just can't think of the words, you know.
I liked it when General Hal Moore was his name, talking to Rick. He said, pop smoke so we can land in the right landing zone. Made me smile, because he's talking about heaven. But that made me really happy, because like all these friends and family will see him again one day, or at least that's my belief.
Oh, and another note that I made, I guess kind of in relation to that, is like, it's just amazing how he affected the lives of all those people who survived. Because wasn't like one or two of the perspectives of someone who was in the tower?
Yes, and one of the emails.
They made it out of the building, and he was young too when it happened.
Yeah,
he was like 20-something, I think.
The guy. Yeah. It was one of the emails, and he was saying, I just want to say thank you, because if it wasn't for your husband, I wouldn't be here, because I was there.
I didn't write like a lot down, because I'm like,
there's so much, and there's not enough words.
Yeah.
I
did cry when the book was over.
Yeah.
Like, it pretty much was like the book ended, and I was driving when I was listening to it too. It's a bad idea. But I just started crying.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I just got so sad. I don't know if it's just because like the book was over, or if it's just after everything, you know, like just taking it all in.
Yeah. Like just is it finality of...
Finality or
finality,
something like that.
Yeah. It just I felt like hollowed.
Yeah.
When I read this, like afterwards, because it was just kind of like, oh my lord, like that many emotions just went through me.
Yeah.
And this, I think it took me 2 or 3 days to read this. There's several songs written. I had the band name wrote down, but I thought I did, but I didn't. Apparently, Halfway to Heaven was written with Rick Rescorla in mind. I don't know if you ever heard that song or not. My dad used to listen to it.
I'm not sure. If I heard it, I'd probably be like, oh yeah.
Yeah. When Lieutenant Bud Alley said damn, and I was like, it's funny because he's from the South, and in the South it's 2 syllables. That's probably my only funny note from this. Wasn't he making like a documentary or a book, and Robert Edwards was either recording him or videoing him talking about like his military days, and then he hired a girl named Fern to help him, and it turned out to be like, Rick asked them, are you a husband and wife team? And they said, no, we've only just met. And then he said, well, you would work together. And they're still married. Like, they had a part in this book talking about how they're still together. And I thought it was really cool about how Rick basically was like, you guys are a good team. And they're still together. They said that they were together when 9/11 happened.
I don't really have any other notes.
I do have that email I want to read.
You can read it.
But I specifically wrote down because I cried like a baby. When I read this one. I had to put the book down for a while after I read this email, because I couldn't keep going anymore until the next day. The emails don't have like a from person. Like, she explains how she wanted to hide identities, and some emails were long, so she just took like sections and put in the book. This one was titled God Took Him First. This September 11th, my 7-year-old son and I watched The Man Who Predicted 9/11 on the History Channel. My son has always viewed life a little bit outside of the mainstream and has had some difficult diagnoses. However, his words are often stunning. As you know, near the end of the show, it talks about how Rick went back inside to rescue others even though he could have stopped. It also stated how the building collapsed on top of him and how his body was never found, but other bodies were. After watching the entire show and not saying one word, my son said, I know why they never found his body. And I asked him why, and he said because God took him first. And, like, that happens, I'm about to cry, that happens one time in the Bible where someone just didn't die because God saw him as too pure to die. And so God took him to heaven. And that's what this reminded me of, was Rick Rescorla being too pure to die. And so God took him. I don't think they ever found him, did they? Yeah, so.
I think there's quite a few people's bodies they might not have ever found.
Yeah.
Just because of the devastation, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine.
With
especially the building collapsing and stuff.
And I think debris and stuff was still, like,
settling in the air.
And settling, like, even days afterwards.
Yeah.
So I think
I want to say
right.
there was, like, smoke and stuff, like, from debris from the building collapsing for up to a week, maybe. I think it mentioned it somewhere in the book.
I think so, too, because I remember that.
It made me feel good that through the journey of taking the steel beam memorial and all these people's words, that she was able to find her inner peace about all this and say that I know that she's not okay. She probably will never be okay. But to be comfortable knowing that he did a good thing and being happy that he did that thing takes a lot of strength.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't have any more notes. If you don't, I have buzzwords.
I have commentary, as always.
Oh, commentary. Outside the box.
Yeah. Except mine is in a box.
Oh, wow. Mine's not. My buzzwords were heartfelt, informative, touching, and beautifully written.
I wrote heartfelt, emotional, inspiring. Wow, those are actually words. And I wrote, like, that's just like the type of book that you just can't give less than a 5.
No, yeah, I gave it a 5 out of 5.
It's so emotional and inspiring. Yes. Very reflective, too.
If words could make me cry the amount of times that I cried, it deserves a 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to visit the memorial and the museum one day.
I really want to go to the one in New York City.
Yeah. If I was to ever go to New York City, it'd be for that. That'd probably be the only reason.
My mother, my brother, and my uncle all got the opportunity to go to, it's a museum up there, I think.
Yeah.
But they got to go up to the museum up there. I happened to be working that day, and they decided to go without me, which makes me really sad because I really wanted to go and see and experience that. So I haven't even had the opportunity to go and see that, and I lived like an hour away from there. But I definitely want to go and visit one day.
Yeah.
And I would love to go see that steel beam, too.
There's a 9/11 memorial stair climb in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh.
Don't know what that would be. 9/11 Memorial and Museum is in New York.
Yeah, it's in New York City, like the Bronx, I believe. I don't know how New York City's, like, broken down. I've lived in that area.
It says Hoboken. Hoboken?
Hoboken?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's New Jersey.
Yeah, it says Jersey City. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to go to that one day.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, I believe we will wrap up this episode here then.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, and thank you, Susan Rescorla, for writing.
And sharing this story with everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to end this.
I don't either. Like, I feel hollow.
Again.
Yeah, like I read it all over again.
Yeah.
This book definitely, like, makes you feel heavy and sad, but also happy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's so weird. This book has so many emotions to it. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to recommend a book, we have an email at biblioaudiopod@gmail.com.
Or you can recommend us stuff on Instagram, which is biblioaudiopodcast is the handle for that.
And we will be going to Summerton, Alabama, October 14th for a book fest put on by the Booked on Main bookstore. It is starting at 9 a.m. I think it ends at 4. It's like 9 to 4, I think. Mm-hmm. But we'll be there. We'll have a booth. So come and do a meet and greet. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.